Okay.
All right.
You don't have to, Sarah. He'll just blame you.
You have to go now.
Oh, I would never.
Good evening. Woo! Okay, it is working now. Okay, good evening. Welcome to the MSAD number 51 School Board of Directors meeting for Thursday, December 5th. It's wonderful to see this full room as we kick off with a recognition for the Greeley Football Championship team. We have Representative Steve Moriarty and Representative Ann Graham here to help us celebrate. Go for it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the board. And tonight I actually come before you as private citizen Steve Moriarty, as of about 36 hours ago. So it's my pleasure to be here with you, and you know the drill and the presentation of these sentiments. These are official recognitions and expressions of congratulations from the state to typically state school teams who have won state championships and other types of competitions, drama, and so forth and so on. In November, we were given a date by which we had to get all these sentiments in, and the deadline actually was just several days after the weekend on which the football team won the championship. Had it been just a week the other way, we might have been able to combine tonight's event with the two soccer team recognitions. But on the other hand, we can recognize the teams in a separate sort of way now. So that perhaps is not a bad idea after all. So glad to see so many team members and supporters and so forth here tonight. This is really impressive. I'm joined by my former colleague, Representative Ann Graham from North Yarmouth, and Senator Teresa Peirce evidently could not make it tonight. So I'll just read this sentiment, and some of you may hum along with as I read, because you've heard these words many times before, and some it's just a matter of almost filling in the blanks on the state's standardized language. So from the state of Maine, be it known that we, the members of the Senate and House of Representatives, join in recognizing the Greeley High School 8-man football team, which won the 8-man large school state championship, the team's first state championship. We extend our congratulations and best wishes, and be it ordered that this official expression of legislative sentiment be sent forthwith on behalf of the 131st legislature and the people of the state of Maine. And this is dated November 18, 2024. The final period of time in which we could produce sentiments when the 131st was still in existence. It is signed by the former President of the Senate, the former Speaker of the House, and Representative Graham's name and Senator Peirce's name and mine appear on it as well. So congratulations to the team members. I know my former colleague has a few comments to give as well tonight.
Well, thanks, Stephen. I really think it's sad that you keep saying former colleague. And I want to say thank you to Steve. He was the driver to get all these sentiments over the past several months, celebrating all the great success that this school has had. It's just amazing. And so I just want to say congratulations, you guys. I grew up in Bangor, and at the time there weren't soccer teams. There was just a football team, maybe cross country too, right? And we did really, really, really well. You guys are amazing to have your first state championship, and I've seen you build and grow, and I just, that's a real accomplishment, a huge accomplishment. Congratulations. And I'm honored to say that your school board colleague here, Christina Mitchell, has now joined me in Augusta to serve as a state legislator, so maybe she'll be doing those. So I anticipate you guys are going to be here again next year and the year after and the year after. So congratulations, you really rocked, and we're all so very proud of you.
And I guess If there are any members of the team who would like to speak or share some thoughts with us, this would be the appropriate time to do so. If there's a designated hitter or someone who wants to be spontaneous, if not, then I will leave this with the team captain or captains.
Go for it.
There you go. This is for display in the school.
Congratulations. We're so very proud and really wonderful. The board just really enjoys supporting our athletes, and thank you so much for coming out tonight. Great job. All right. Next up on the agenda, we have our Greeley PTO, Jenny Burnell and Tara Nelson. I'd like to welcome you up. Thank you. Yeah, come on up. Thanks, guys.
Well, it's tough to follow that. Congratulations, guys. Thanks for having us this evening and recognizing the Greeley PTO and all that we're working on and hoping to accomplish this year. My name is Jenny Burnell. This is
Tara Nelson.
Tara Nelson. We're the current co-chairs of the Greeley PTO Board of Directors. Many or most of you know what it is we do, but our mission is to support the MSAD 51 school community district, or the school district, by enriching the lives of students pre-K through 8 by funding field trips, guest speakers, author visits, and other fun events throughout the year. Part of our mission is to also inform parents through our Parent University series and other events we hold throughout the year for parents, and also connecting parents, educators, and other members of the community. We meet monthly, August through June, and have had a really busy couple of months already. Our events have included kindergarten coffee in September, where we bring together parents of kindergartners. A lot of these parents are new to the school community altogether, and I think really appreciate that opportunity to connect over coffee over at Dara Bistro. At the start of school, we also hosted the hugely popular Grand event over at MIW, where we invite grandparents and grand friends to take a tour of the school with their students. And we've also held a number of fundraisers, including 2 Greeley gear sales that have done very well. Also a Greeley takeover night, a PTO takeover night at the Maine Mariners. That's a new event we offered. It's a fundraiser, and that was really well attended. We're going to offer a Maine Celtics PTO takeover night in February. Yeah. So we sell tickets. I think they were $20 a ticket, and a portion of the proceeds went back to the PTO. We also held our Parent Power Appeal, which is typically our biggest fundraiser of the year. We didn't quite meet our goal. We were pretty lofty at $20,000 this year. We brought in, I think, just over $13,000, which is fantastic. We've been able to fund playground equipment for both MIW and GMS 4 through 8. And a number of other field trips already this year, including the 5th grade field trip to Boston, 3rd grade Maine Wildlife Park field trip, and 7th grade Bryant Pond scholarships for that overnight trip. Upcoming fundraisers include a readathon at MIW. That was really popular last year. We made, I think, $16,000 from that fundraiser. It was fantastic. The kids loved it. It was really easy to do, and so we're going to do that again, either over at February or April break. I mentioned the Maine Celtics night, and then we'll do a spring Greeley gear sale. We also look forward to hosting events like trivia night, bingo night, sledding day, if we get snow, and our Fill-A-Bus, Fill-A-Belly event with the food pantry in town, and then staff appreciation events at the end of the year. So that's a super quick little snapshot about, into what we're doing, but we always welcome questions, suggestions, recommendations. We really love what we do, and we have a fantastic group of people. We have 23 on our board this year, and everybody is just really enthusiastic. Like almost too many ideas. It's like we can't do it all, but we really want to, and we appreciate the supportive relationships, with our community partners here in the MSAD 51 community. So thank you, Tara.
You did it. You did it. You did it all.
Thanks for having us.
Hold on one second, though. So thank you for all that you do to enhance our communities and schools and teachers' experience here. There was one thing that I got excited about that you didn't mention that I saw, your blanket sale.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, Leanne.
Yes.
We have some, that's a new thing. We've got some fleece blankets. There's two different designs. They're Greeley. One, I don't know, I wish we could share them, but they're like a light fleece blanket.
But they're big.
But they're huge, like 30
Great for
by
the football
60.
game, right?
50 by
Like to bring to our
50
football
by
games,
60.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
For football games. They're $30 each, and we ordered 100, and I think we probably still have 80 left.
Okay.
Yeah.
So-
They'll be at Dara in the morning the next 2 Fridays.
Okay. I need to.
And
You can order online.
yeah. Yeah.
Great.
But
I
they're
know I
pretty
need
great.
to send my.
And
Order
we have
them.
them so they're available for Christmas.
Yeah.
Which was a big
Yeah.
question from everyone.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
All right. We're going to move on to the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the November 21st, 2024 meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Annika. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jesse. Any questions or comments on the meeting minutes? Great. All in favor? Great. It's unanimous. Okay, next up we have public comment. We welcome public comment. And to ensure public comment is fair and orderly, we follow procedures outlined in Board Policy BEDH, and we ask that all members of the public do so as well. We follow this policy to help keep the meeting civil, respectful, and productive. We also hope that this allows for all community members who would like to speak to be heard. We ask that the speakers use the designated podium when making their comments and speak into the microphone. If you're interested in speaking, please wait until you're recognized by myself, the chair. Comments by individuals are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes at a meeting. A clock will be visible on screen to help keep track of time. After 3 minutes, the timer will go off and comments should be wrapped up. Please state your name and town of residence before beginning your remarks. As a reminder, public comment is not a time for discussion, Q&A, or debate between the board and the speakers. Rather, it is a chance for the members of the public to express their opinions on school and educational matters. The board will not comment on remarks made by speakers during the public comment period. Please note that this does not mean we're not listening, and it does not express any agreement or disagreement with your statements. Lastly, please keep your comments respectful and civil. We also ask that comments are addressed to myself, the chair, and please do not direct comments at or about individuals in our schools or communities. And so I'd like to welcome anyone who's here for public comment. All comments should be directed to me, and it shouldn't be about other people. So, yeah, I know, we have a meeting set up for next week. Great. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Amy Martin. I live in Cumberland. I see that there's an item on the agenda tonight to approve the artificial turf field recommendation. So I have 2 comments to provide on the turf field recommendation. One is in regards to soil management during construction, and the other is in regards to the turf stormwater runoff. Regarding the soil management during and after construction, I noticed in reviewing the site location of development, the SLOTA permit application, which was prepared for the school district by Atlantic Resource Consultants, that this application indicated that previous soil investigations on campus have found elevated concentrations of arsenic in the soils. and that the turf field project will disturb areas where those impacted soils have been identified. They'll actually need to be stripped up to install the new field. That application also says that the campus's existing VRAP, the Voluntary Response Action Plan, will be amended to reflect the proposed fieldwork. So my comment or question is that I'd like to know when that amended VRAP will be available for review so that we have transparency about how those contaminated soils will be managed on campus. The second comment regarding turf stormwater runoff, I understand that the geosurfaces pivot turf and shock pad recommended will be installed over 2.3 acres of the campus, and that turf field has an underdrain system collecting the infiltrated rainwater and stormwater runoff. That water is then routed to the wet pond behind the middle school. That water subsequently discharges to a drainage easement on Meadow Lane, which is my neighborhood. So I'm not here because I'm worried about microplastics in the ocean. It's because kids on my street play in that water. So I also, from the slow to permit application, saw that this application indicates that the new turf field is considered self-treating through the stone layers under the turf. So my question is, I'd like to know exactly what stormwater pollutants will and won't be treated by that gravel filtration. I'm glad to see that the turf committee found a product which is PFAS-free at 1 part per million. But if things like microplastics or other emerging contaminants might be in the runoff, I'd like to request that the stormwater collection systems for the turf field are designed with the ability to treat or filter out contaminants that the manufacturer should be able to tell us might be in the runoff discharge to our neighborhood. Microplastics in particular can be removed with filtration devices designed for this purpose. It's an existing technology. You can find filters marketed specifically for use on artificial turf field drainage. This is a basic technology. It will vastly improve the water quality. And as for other pollutants that we might not know about yet, today and in the past we've been talking about PFAS, but tomorrow it will be a new emerging contaminant. We don't know what it is yet. So this field shouldn't be installed without a plan for routine testing of that stormwater runoff. And if we design a system with the ability to retrofit or add further treatment components down the road, then we can take care of whatever we find in the runoff that routine testing program might find later. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Great. Is there anyone else who'd like to? Guess you're next, Bruce.
I'm battling it, Bruce Sherwin, Cumberland, battling asthma and holding back a cough, so maybe I'll need a few more seconds. Anyway, I wanted to I'm going to talk about the turf because I understand I won't be able to talk later. And I just want to say that the turf committee, led by one of the members here, did an excellent job of analyzing the turf. Very impressive, and changed my thoughts on it quite a bit. I think it would have changed a lot of people's thoughts on it if it was presented before the vote, and I think it should have been, with a accompanying full-page ad in the forecaster opposite the school ad to inform people what they were voting for. That's number one. So thank you to them. Yeah, I'm struggling here. Let's see. Well, I'll talk about timing. A couple of board members have mentioned at different meetings, one on March 18th and the recent combination meeting, that the turf should probably be among the last things done for budget reasons in case money gets tight. We haven't not finished the school with enough money. School has a much higher importance than the turf to the community. The finance director for the school, the district school, not sure which, but at the March 18th meeting mentioned a 20-year bond on this turf. The bond only has a 12-year guarantee, according to what I heard the other night. I, as a taxpayer, would not want to see a bond beyond the guarantee period. I don't want to be paying for a bond that is gone after it is gone. And the cost. I don't know what's involved in the vote tonight, but there was no cost in the presentation the other day. As a taxpayer again, I would like to see no approval forward till we know what it is going to cost. I don't know if it's a quote, but an estimated cost, a firm estimated cost. And then again, back to the front. It's too bad that people that are voting for this, paying for it, who were told nothing, very little about it, only sales pitches before the vote, didn't get information to help them decide their vote. That was a real lax by the school board, not informed. I watched the March 18th meeting when the architect was here. The school board peppered him with questions about the turf. If you watch it on the video, then they didn't turn around and share it with any voters. That's not the way to operate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bruce. I hope you feel better.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Morazzini, and I live in Cumberland. I'm with my neighbors here in Meadow Lane. And I want to thank all the work that was done by the committee and to get us to this point and then force me to look around a bit. And in my looking, I'm concerned of companies that say it's PFAS free. You only have to go as far down as Portsmouth, who went, looked around, did the research, had companies come in and one say PFAS free. Guess what? It wasn't. Ironically, in looking around, well, there's a small town outside of Rhode Island. There are places in in California. There are many places where companies have come in and promised PFAS free. It's not been the case. Ironically, the town I grew up in, a lot like this one in Woodbridge, Connecticut, their high school, same thing. Hired consultants, came in, PFAS free. It wasn't. The surface water, in fact, violated EPA standards. You think the companies turned around and pulled it out? No, sir. Big problems legally. So I'm concerned when I hear that. The other thing is we're not just talking about PFAS. Microplastics have been mentioned. And also emergent contaminants. What's tomorrow's PFAS going to look like? What's that? 10 years ago, we weren't talking about this. Microplastics weren't talked about. I'm not even going to go into the ill effects. You all know this. We know that microplastics are in everything, from the placenta to the human brain to the heart, been noted in New England Journal of Medicine. So you think it's all going to get caught by the catch basin? Catch basins fail. They work a lot of the times, but they do fail. My father built them for 50 years. A lot of them worked, wrong conditions. They don't. They won't collect it off. They're not going to collect what runs off the asphalt up here. People are going to, with sneakers and shoes, are going to bring the contaminants on the asphalt. They're not going to necessarily fit into the crown. I was struck. There were no specified provisions for continued maintenance, such as Amy mentioned. There's also no mention of climatic events. What about what's going on with the climate? Last winter, we had horrific storms on the coast. What happens if we're the next Asheville, North Carolina? What if we get 16 inches of rain? Do you think that catch basin's going to work? I have also, what about the drought? What if it continues? What if it's hotter? What if it's hotter? Normal grass compared to artificial, 3 times the amount of water gets poured on it. What happens if it keeps getting hotter? Catch basin going to work? I'm also, like Amy, stunned. We need a provision of testing. Wow. Knockout punch. All done. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Margaret Ryman, 44 Meadow Lane. Again, I would like to reiterate my concern about testing water that is a result from the runoff of the new turf. I would like to see a very firm schedule, who is in charge, when that schedule will happen. If it falls short of the expectations, what will be done in retrospect? Also, again, going back to what has been mentioned previously, the concern is contaminants, not just for my yard, Amy's yard, or the other neighbors. There's so many kids that play in that neighborhood, and folks who come in and out, and of course you have kids on the school ground. So I'd like you to seriously reconsider going forward with this motion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we are going to move to presentations. We have the first presentation is around the site plan draft for the new school project, or the new campus, the One Campus project. We're going to welcome Andy Johnson up to present. I guess, Tim, do you want to say a few words as
Sure.
the building committee chair?
So this is an exciting day for us, I think. It feels like a significant step for this project, approving the site plan. So I want to thank Stephen Blatt, architects, particularly Steve, Doug, Andy, and Pat, who have spent countless hours with us, the building committee, school leadership, just generally everyone. I think this has truly been put forth by a diverse set of stakeholders, certainly not done in isolation or in the middle of the night. This has been a long time coming, and a really thoughtful, strategic plan. So you've all seen the site plan a few times. We've made mild alterations, I think, since the summer. Andy will go over the plan in a few minutes, but I do want to highlight a few things. Our goal was to make a space that functions for our unique needs, but was flexible enough to grow with us. We also wanted to bring back what we lost in the portables and other workarounds that we had to put forward just to make it possible to manage our student population. So in this plan, you notice we've added a number of parking spots, including improving this lot by the Geiger room, making it bigger and actually capable of fitting real life cars. We've made a number of traffic improvements, including making a Geiger a two-way road throughout and flipping MIW's bus and parent visitor entrances. We're moving fence lines to accommodate both SAD needs and the abutters requests. We're getting rid of the portables and restoring our green spaces, which we lost, and we're even adding an outdoor basketball court to kind of fill in the space where some of the leveling was done for the portables. So I'm really excited about that. I know Mr. Muncie is too. The site plan also includes the addition of a new maintenance building, which is big enough to contain some of our most valuable assets. You see them right now currently, like taking the weather and being outside and taking a beating, and now we can put those under cover. But the maintenance building is also, I think, practical enough to not break the bank. We really had an eye of like kind of like economic needs and costs throughout. This is not a luxury product, but I think we got a lot out of it for the money that we're spending. So this is a full campus improvement plan, and I believe it's equally responsible and needed, and I hope you guys agree. So with that, Andy, give us the formal kind of formal view.
Do you have the ability to bring the site plan up here? A little bigger than that would be nice. I've got one on a flash drive if you need it. Yes, I'm going to give you the one on the flash drive because it's a little clearer about what the changes are going to be. So.
I hope it's the one that divides with the dots.
So I'll go
Andy,
through this.
Andy, I've got the other one. Do you want me to put that one up? I'm over here. So Lincoln, do you want to let go and I can put this up?
Perfect. That's what I had on the flash drive is the one that you have, Jeff. There it was.
We saw it. Looks good.
So what I'll do is I'll just go through very briefly some of the things that we have done on the site plan, and Tim gave a really good overview of what we've done. And if you can go down a little bit, Jeff, I'll start at the new school site and I'll just go through that, and I'll go around kind of clockwise. And it's in four separate, there are almost like four separate site plans here that come together and make a more coherent circulation and parking plan for the entire campus. But the first one is the new school site, which most of you will be familiar with. The school is nestled into that nook of property and kind of takes up most of the available space there. Steve and his team have done a great job fitting that building in with all the space requirements there. Towards the rear, which is towards Tuttle Road, which is the bottom of the plan, there are the two playgrounds, the pre-K playground and the K-1 playground, just to the rear of the building. But to plan left there, the idea here is that you come in from the main entrance on Main Street and you come into a staff parking area on the left of the school, shown on the left of the school there. If you go all the way through that parking lot, and the travel lane will go all the way through that parking lot and then come back along the face of the building, and all along that face of the building is the drop-off area. So that's all protected from traffic, and we always try and keep the pedestrians away from the main traffic routes. So you'll be able to get out of your car, down on that drop-off loop and go straight into the school, no crossing vehicle lanes, no crossing traffic for the kids down there. And in front of the school, we have a similar thing happening, but that's the bus loop. And again, same again, all the drop-off areas towards the school, you're not crossing any lanes. You'll notice in one of the iterations of this plan, there was originally in border that there was a pre-K drop-off area. That's disappeared now, and the thought being that the pre-K kids should really get used to being dropped off in the same area that they're going to get dropped off when they're K and above. So it just makes it a little more efficient and a little less of a transition for them when they go from one grade to the next. And then furthest to the right there, we have staff, a little more additional staff and visitor parking proximate to the front of the school. And you'll notice all that parking and all the drop-off area is organized so it's planned south of the main lane that comes through the campus, which is now being realigned a little bit to provide a really good division between what belongs to this school and what belongs to the high school. So Plan North is the rearranged and reconfigured high school parking lot. You'll see your rather unattractive little detention basin that's down by the track there is no longer going to be an unattractive detention basin. That's going to be additional parking for the high school. And you'll see a common theme in some of these is that parking lot is now much more geometric and much better arranged, so the travel paths through the parking lot and the aisle widths and the parking spaces are all regular, so you can actually, as Tim said, you can actually fit real cars in them, and you can actually get in and out of them without taking 3 goes at it. So there's a little additional parking there where the detention basin was to supplement, and that parking lot, the high school parking lot down south, basically retains the existing number of spaces in it that you have now. So in addition to providing more parking for the new school, that parking lot down there pretty much provides the same capacity. If we go up to the next phase of the plan, which is additional high school parking out front here, and again, this went through a number of different iterations to try and get this right, but essentially what we're doing is we're providing better organization, better geometry, better space sizes, and providing some expansion to that parking lot. There's a significant expansion in the number of spaces, but it's not taking up a lot more space, it's just better organized. So now you have clear travel paths in and out of that parking lot. You have geometric parking spaces. You have geometric aisles that you can get in and out of. You have one of the things that came up in the initial planning board review when we submitted the sketch plan is all of these parking lots and all of these areas have been designed to accommodate emergency vehicles. So we've taken the biggest ladder truck we could find, 105-foot ladder truck, and run it around all these areas. So you can get these in and out with enough space that, you know, if it's not your A-team driver on there. He's not going to knock into anything on the way round. So plenty of space, better organization, better travel paths. And if we go further up the high school, there's some more additional parking here. And again, just notice again the geometry. I came down through here while there was I think it was a soccer game on one evening, and walked from this parking lot down through there. One, it was dark. Two, the parking, with the angled parking and the traffic, it was awful tight in there. And with this, again, we're straightening up the geometry. We're providing perpendicular parking, real aisle widths, real spaces, so that you can actually see where you're going, you can get in and out efficiently, and it's going to improve both the parking capacity and the circulation in the site. And one other thing to mention as we go through this is the lighting, which is a significant factor, especially for safety around the campus. There is going to be an overall campus master lighting plan that goes with these improvements to improve the lighting and to ensure that it's set to good standards, so you won't get these dark spots, bright spots. They'll all be high efficiency, full cut-off LED lights that are very targeted and provide much better, much more even lighting across these spaces. Around the back here, you'll see the new maintenance building, which is that odd-shaped, that little thing there, with a nice little area around the back for lay down equipment. It has a little canopy over it, so you can put some of the equipment storage under cover. A new dumpster there. And you'll notice some of the other kind of ancillary improvements that we're making. The grey area with the handicap parking down there. As we went through this whole design process, we noticed that some of the handicap parking that you have on campus doesn't actually meet the correct slopes for ADA parking. So there are some areas where we just, while we're at it, we're going to adjust that and make sure it does meet the ADA standards. And again, that's important because it's proximate to the grandstand for the field, and you know, it's going to be a highly used area. So down to the right, that is the new turf game field, which basically sits, it doesn't show up very well on this plan, it sits right over the existing competition field. Some minor adjustments at the edges just to even up that field. They don't really show on this because it's on the grading plan, but that'll go from being a cross-pitch surface to being an even surface. The lighting upgrades will use the existing poles, but new LED high-efficiency fixtures, which provide better light as well as less spill-off on the sides. And that kind of covers that area. And the last area we looked at was the MIW site. And originally, there was some more extensive plans for improvements around this area. But again, through an iterative process, we kind of came up, I shouldn't take credit for it, Pat came up with most of this, came up with a much more efficient way of doing the same thing. So less work, but really achieving all the same objectives. So you won't see a tremendous amount of changes on the ground in this area. What you'll see is geometrical improvements, particularly around what is the existing parent drop-off loop, which is now going to become the bus drop-off, just to make it easier for the buses to get around there. A little realignment of that central drive that goes through the campus, because it has this odd wiggle in the curve, which just is, it's not efficient, and it's ugly. And some rearrangement of the admin parking lot, and you'll notice that the entrance, which is currently right on the end, by the corner of that road, is not the best location for the entrance to a parking lot. So it's coming down to the center, and that enables us to apportion the left-hand side or the bottom side on the plan of parking for administrative use and allocate the remainder of that towards high school, towards improving parking for the high school students. Again, some minor amendments to the curb lines and the sidewalks there, straightening up some of the geometry along the front and making that two-way perpendicular parking instead of having the angled parking again, which people do find a little confusing. Visitor parking down at the right-hand end here next to the entrance off Tuttle Road. And then what was the bus loop becomes the parent drop-off loop as it was configured under COVID, because that worked pretty well during COVID. And it's much better for the front door, for visibility. And this is one of the factors that kind of lags sometimes on the list, but is becoming increasingly apparent in schools is security is a huge issue. So when people come and visit and when people come and drop off, you want to be able to see who's coming and going and know, like, coming in the back door, or, you know, back when I went to school, none of the doors would shut, so kids would run out between breaks and between lessons. None of that. There's one way in. Everyone can see who's coming in and who's going, and see them from a good distance off. And it's kind of unfortunate you have to think about those things, but you do. A little further up on the plan here, and you'll see the little hook-shaped addition on the building, which is 4 classrooms. That's new. You'll see all the portables gone out of there, and a little basketball court, if you can just go up a little bit there, which is right on where the portables are, and the remainder of that big area to the left of that is going to be green space and play area. Tuttletown stays the way it is, shade structure stays the way it is, so kind of minimal disruption to that area, but a big gain in efficiency. And to summarize basically what we've done here, as well as the new school, we've done circulation improvements that make the circulation more efficient. We've added parking spaces. It's going to be a total addition of, I think, 176 parking spaces on the campus. 80 of those spaces are specifically allocated towards high school parking, so there'll be an increase of 80 spaces for high school folks to park in. And again, as I say, it's going to add to the efficiency of the circulation, hopefully reduce the need for additional parking capacity, and serve the district and the campus well into the future.
Great, thank you, Andy. And I did want to mention there are some changes in right above in the quadrant by GMS, in that those portables will also be removed once this project is finished,
Correct.
which is the ultimate goal there. So I also want to thank Tim's work with the building committee, and it's really been incredible. The amount of time that the committee members have put in to review and work with you and your colleagues, Blatt and Associates, to really hear feedback, take in everything from committee members who have a wide representation of parents, to other school folks, to then sitting down with members of our school community and going back through and having updates made, sometimes on the fly, and now to see what we have presented here has been really incredible. And we're excited to also get these posted to make sure everyone has these on our website too. On our building committee page, so they can see all the work, and that it really is a one campus plan, that we're able to accommodate so many incredible updates to fit our expanding students and families in our community. So thank you. I do want to give time if there's questions. I know a number of people on the board have also been on the building committee and have had a chance to weigh in, and that we've had some presentations throughout the fall, but I also just want to see if there was questions. Go ahead.
I have a question about the new school. Is that no longer a double loop drop-off?
It is no longer a double loop drop-off. So originally, you'll recall there was a double loop, and the interior loop was the pre-K drop-off. And that was through, as I recall that discussion, it was that it would be better to have the pre-K kids dropped off at the same location as the K through 1 kids, so it's less of a transition. So they know where they're going. When they go to that school, that's where they get dropped off from start to finish. It leaves us a little more green space in there as well, and I think, you know, with the offset timing, it works efficiently.
I guess that's the answer before I ask the next question, the offset timing, because the conversation, as I remember before with the building committee, was that the pre-K certainly they're in their car seats, and that's not a quick drop-off, and that will slow out all of the traffic down.
Yes, and sometimes we do look at that, and we look at it separately, and we look at it more of a kind of a parking space for folks like that to park and stop, as opposed to a parallel drop-off. So we have looked at that in the past, but I think in this case, I think generally the conversation was pushing towards just having it all in the same location, to make it easier, and it makes it a little more efficient, because if you put pre-K in the interior there, they have to cross the bus loop to get in, which is
Yeah, I think that was the biggest concern, was the crossing of the bus loop.
And is there a time offset when the pre-K come and the K come and the others?
We have a whole conversation around pre-K planning that.
Well, not
All
even
to
pre-K.
be, I mean, for right now, our schedule is half and half, obviously, in the morning. Students that come in, it's the same time as everybody else. But we're dealing with a lot less students at this school too, as pre-K comes in
Okay.
in the morning. And then we have an afternoon PM session, AM and then PM, so there's no other traffic.
I guess I just still have questions about the backup it may cause, unless there are enough parking spots for those strapped-in kids, the moms to pull over.
And it's a good question, and it's something we can continue to look at, and we can continue to discuss it. It's a relatively minor change. We've seen it done both ways, and it depends on. Sometimes these things, it's like an evolving behaviour. So when people drop off, if they find there's a particular time that is really difficult, and you'll find this with the whole traffic discussion on Main Street and Tuttle Road as well, is people will modify their behaviour depending on what conditions they expect to find when they get there. So different schools have approached it different ways. There's always a solution is the answer. It's sometimes it's a management solution, sometimes it's a design solution.
Christina, I had the same concern. There were parents and staff members who preferred this like merging as well, and because I was just like, well, you know, I want to like recognize the fact that like even at Mablite Wilson we get backed up, and these are like much older students that should be able to get out, and like parents still park there and walk them down, and so like to Andy's point, you know, Courtney and I have kind of changed our behavior. Either we're throwing our kids out the door, or the car door, literally doing that. Yeah, no, barely. Or we park at the library as well. And so, like, I think we should double check as a building committee just to make sure there's enough parking to make it like that behavior still kind of encouraged, so that they can do that. But yeah, I do share that concern. But I think that most people felt like it would be better developmentally and also just safer from a crossing pattern to do that.
And I don't even think this came up, but there's the chance that somebody would have a pre-K kid and a first grade kid, that there would then be two different drop-offs. Yeah. But great question. Go ahead.
So thank you for the presentation and all the work that went into it. I was happy to hear that we'll be getting a lighting upgrade, not only around the field, but also all over campus with those high efficiency cutoff LEDs. I think that will be a big improvement. One question that I had is about the detention basin, and just clarification on that, because I think my understanding was that there will still be detention basin. It will just be under the parking spaces, correct?
So the way that it functions right now is it's kind of it's supposed to be a vegetated under drain filter. So the water goes in there, and you see all the pipes coming in from the walls on either side, and it basically goes into the ground. There's an outlet control structure. I doubt it ever operates. We've seen the soils data for this site, and basically it's sand to about 9 feet, or as far as they went with the test pit. And we did 2 test pits by the new school. It was actually 10 feet, and it was sand with no sign of seasonal high groundwater. So essentially, the way that operates is the water goes in there and it goes in the ground. What it will do now is, and these are kind of difficult to describe, it's not underground chambers, they're more like milk crates. So it's like a rectangular chamber system that has posts in it. And they literally look like stacked milk crates, but, you know, rectangular. And it will basically fill that basin. And then it has stone around it and over the top of it, geotextile fabric, and then you can put the pavement section above that. So it operates in exactly the same way as the existing detention does. It drains through the bottom, there are under drains, there are overflows, there's an outlet control structure on it. But essentially it's hidden.
Thank you.
And what drains into that? The fields don't drain into that?
No.
Okay.
No, that at the moment there are drains that go from the central road that comes through and the parking lot.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. I have some questions about Mabel Wilson. Given that you guys tested the fire truck, the 105-foot fire truck over at the high school, I'm gonna guess you did this, but I'm just curious because I've driven a school bus before. The buses coming down, say from the proposed new school, would come down the hill and then they'd come down and they would turn left, am I correct? Into that loop to drop off. And so that curve is negotiable for a big bus?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
And
it looks so
and
tight.
to give you
Yeah.
to give you some confidence in this, we've done some schools that have been really pretty tight. And if you look at Cape Furbish in Brunswick is the tightest one I can think of, and they were really, really concerned about that. That has a 28-foot inside radius, and it's a full 180 loop. And so when they had the gravel down before they paved it and before they put the curbing in, we put cones out and the bus drivers came in, and sure enough, sometimes it looks a little worse than it is. There's a little more space than you think you got there. And we've run the fire truck around that, and the fire truck will get around there. So there's space.
And the school buses did go that way during COVID.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. it just looks so tight. I see some cars mess it up.
And that's one of the that's one of the geometry tweaks that you've made on both ends. There's
We've
Yeah,
made it a little
so there's-
smoother than
yeah.
it was
Yeah.
because it was kind of uneven. There were two radiuses on the curves, and it was just uneven. They didn't meet a tangent. It was ugly. So
Yeah. But I'm a very big fan of this plan because there are so many times when I see parents crossing from the admin lot, dropping off there, crossing all the way over, and it's so unsafe. So I'm hoping that our communication plan to parents as this opens up, that we can get parents to not even be over there, and that'll be fantastic. So yes, thank you very much. And then my other question was, since you were here when during public comment, do you have any answers for our neighbors? Or is that unrelated to your?
which one would you like me to answer?
I just didn't know if you had any reassurance or if you were able to say we're working on that. Or,
firstly, I mean, we've worked with Jesse, and I have to say that the turf committee at this school has more information. They're more informed and more educated on turf fields than any group I have ever worked with. By a long distance, and I mean by a long distance. Normally there's the basic questions and what do we got? Okay, that's good, we're gone. They've done a tremendous amount of research, and I was there for some of the interviews with the suppliers, and they have asked all the hard questions. The testing will be done on the PFAS content of these products to make sure that there is no PFAS in them. Promise or no promise, they're going to test it and they're going to provide the testing data before that material goes in. So I think that's the key answer on the turf front. Also, during the selection process, the issue of microplastics came up, which is why the selection is for a non-infill field to really take that off the table, because the little bits and bobs that you typically see and typically on professional football fields, it's crumb rubber. It still is crumb rubber, but they do get tracked on and off the field. This product has no infill in it, so it has none of the little rubber bits that get tracked off the field surface. So that's the first two, and if there are more,
There was one about storm contaminants.
Or just drainage in general. Like,
Drainage in
how's the
general?
drainage? Like, how's the drainage going to flow from the field?
Or
different,
anywhere on the
differently.
field.
the drainage from a field goes through basically drains through the stone. The stone is designed with a very high infiltration rate. The specified infiltration rate for the base stone of a field is 50 inches per hour. So I have seen demonstrations where people have opened up fire hoses on fields. There isn't a drop of water on the field. It goes into that field, down through the stone. It'll sit in the stone, and the stone provides a good degree of retention, as does the granular borrow, which is a sandy layer underneath it. It then goes into the underdrains, and it drains very slowly if it gets to the underdrains, and it doesn't go right in the soil beneath the field. It drains very slowly into the underdrains, and then it goes to two collector pipes that go down the end. This one is designed to outlet to the wet pond behind the middle school field. And the wet pond behind the middle school field, just to clarify something that was, I know people were concerned about surface water in Cumberland Meadows. The outlet for the middle school detention basin is piped through Cumberland Meadows, all the way through Cumberland Meadows, through the next road down to the stream outlet at the undeveloped property. So the water, there's an easement that goes all the way through. The gentleman on
We're not allowed to have any comment? Is that it? Even when it's not accurate? Do you have no comment?
well, I apologize. I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards about it, but I've seen the plans.
We're happy, and I know that we're working with the town as well to have the conversations around drainage, and that there's additional
There are additional
conversations set
things
up,
that-
and we absolutely want to make the conversations that I know have been happening with residents. We want to make sure those are like everyone has all the information, and I know there's things that are unresolved.
Yeah, and we will continue those conversations.
Yes, and I
with the
know
town to
there's
make
some
sure
on
they
the
get
books in
resolved.
the next week or two, and we're very committed to working with the town and then our neighbors, and that's really important.
You know, we've got a history of 20 years of drainage problems. You know that. Still going on in her property. So you've been here before.
Yeah, and
I'm going to be quiet. I don't want to be rude. I'm being rude.
but we are very committed. Like I know we have active meetings this month with the towns, and to hopefully put a resolution to this, because we have concerns about being good neighbors.
Yep. Anything else?
More questions? Go ahead.
I just have to say that the additional parking at the high school is very, very exciting. There was not space for me to get my parking past junior year, and it felt like the end of the world. There were tears. It was terrible. And I know that some students are going to have to make the trudge through from MIW to the high school in the winters, and that might not be fun, but junior year me would have taken that over anything. So we're very happy about that. So thank you.
Good. Well, thank your building committee members. That came through loud and clear to us.
Well, and our preference is not to have our newly licensed drivers having to drive through our
We've been-
campus to find parking. We'd rather have it located over by the high school and not our youngest community members.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. So my questions aren't specifically for you, but they're in relation to the project. And I just continue to have some concerns about the cost and the contingencies for the building projects and then for the turf. And I personally, I'm gonna beat it until it's dead. I'm gonna ask that the turf be paused so that we get the final numbers, or at least get a clearer ballpark of the final numbers on the two builds. I appreciate, that we've looked at the maintenance building and have kind of done our economizing on that, and I think that's excellent. We can always add to it when we have extra money. I'm concerned about the new school and aware of the 3-year-olds that we're going to have to find room for. So I think it's important that as we're talking about parking, we're going to be talking about 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds getting out of their car seats. And even if it's 2 classes, even if it's a small group, they have different needs. I'm very aware of their needs. I have a lot, at our October meeting, there were conversations, both towns shared residents' concerns. The town officials were sharing residents' concerns about personal cost, taxes, the upcoming revaluations, and then the additional impact that the school budget's gonna have. I'm worried about having enough money, to be very, very honest, and having enough room for our students. I just really am. That's my biggest concern, so. Not sure anybody can waylay those concerns, but.
I know from the cost perspective, certainly on the turf, everything that we've been talking about was within the budget for that. And obviously part of tonight's vote will be about going out to bid, so we actually don't have those bids in for what that would be, but part of the considerations I know of the turf committee was ensuring that anything that we are recommending was going to be able to be within that budget.
And my concern, I guess, just to you convinced me, Jesse. You convinced me, right? And I really appreciate Jesse was very good at answering all of my questions, and he knew coming off the gate that, you know, I'm not against turf. I was against the turf being combined in this package. It's kind of how I got here. That and the preschool aspect. I firmly believe in the community model for preschool. That being said, I want to make sure that our buildings facilitate our students going forward. I very clearly remember needing more money and having to go back and get more money when we went for the PAC. It's not big enough. It doesn't completely support a lot of our needs as a school district. And I don't want to be in this situation 5 or 10 years from now. So I would rather overbuild the building and pause on the turf. That's my feeling.
Thanks, Sarah. Other questions on the site plan?
It was less a question and more just a comment. We were talking about public comment, and I just looked up when the planning board meeting is down at the town. It's November 19th, discussing all this. So if anybody wants to come, oh, sorry, I said the wrong date. December 17th, sorry. Yeah, I looked up for the town of Cumberland, the planning board meeting. It says it's December 17th at 7 p.m. That's Tuesday. And that part of the agenda is the school project. So,
yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, great. Any other questions on the site plan?
I just want to say from a budgetary side, from site, I'll speak specifically to the site, and I know we're going to talk turf in a minute, but from the site, we had some grand plans. I've said this before, and then we asked how much that would cost, and then we were like, okay, we'll come back to that later. So we haven't actually done a lot of changes since the initial projections of the budget have come up. I know we are waiting. I don't know if Steve and Andy, you have any idea when we're going to get the most recent update on the budget, but like from our standpoint, from things we've added very incremental things that from our standpoint, from a building committee standpoint, when we've been very tight on this, I don't think we've gone above and beyond in anywhere where I'm worried from that. But as I've said earlier to other members, like I want to see the most recent projections, and I think that is something that you guys want to see, and you're waiting on like a third party for that. So we will get those and share those as soon as we can.
Yes, and you're correct. I think a lot of the process was garnered around efficiencies that we could achieve the same things basically in a more efficient manner. So I think there was a lot of good work done on that front. And we develop a site budget or site budgets for these individual things, which we've kind of gone through that process. That then gets combined with the building budgets, which are done as with the folks that Steve works with, actually an independent cost estimator who has a pretty incredible track record on these things, actually. I don't know quite how he does the magic that he does, but he does very well. So what you're going to see is him wrapping our numbers into his numbers and then getting an update. And I'm not sure, Steve, do you know when that is coming back?
We just received them this afternoon, and I can just tell you not to worry.
Okay.
Can you please, nobody at home may have heard that. I didn't even know that you were sitting back there, Steve. Thank you. But nobody at home heard that, so if Andy...
So Stephen Blatt has received those updated estimates, and he'll be able to
this
share
afternoon,
with
yes.
you
But
shortly.
things are looking...
And not to worry.
Oh, not to worry.
Okay.
Of extra.
And we'll
Extra? There'll be extra, right?
well, please.
We just got them at 3 o'clock this afternoon, so they haven't been completely analyzed. But I want you to understand that there are contingencies built into the project. Not only that, but our cost estimator plugs his own contingencies in. According to what we received today, we have nothing to worry about, and we have not touched contingencies. And that's for all elements of the project, buildings and site work.
Thank you, Steve.
We will share more with you as soon as we get them documented, deal with the superintendent, the finance director, and make sure that they are comfortable.
Okay, appreciate that. That's a good update for today. Certainly. Okay, anything else on the site plan? I know this rolls actually pretty nicely into the second presentation, which is on the grade configurations and staffing plan for the new school, because we are going to see some other changes in our district that we're planning for. So Jeff is going to share what that plan looks like for the first time.
All right, I'm going to share the proposed staffing plan. This plan was developed in conjunction with the leadership team, and then it has been shared with all staff members in the district now. And I also went and spoke in front of 3 different staffs. I didn't go to the high school because it doesn't directly pertain to them, although they certainly got the presentation. But with the other 3 staffs, pre-K to 3, 4, 5, and 6, 8, I went to a staff meeting and presented this proposal, and actually got some really good feedback near the beginning of the process, in which I tweaked some of this presentation with the leadership team. So the targets, this is the same presentation that I gave to staff. So what you're seeing is exactly what staff received and what I spoke about when I went to staff meetings. Continuing communication about the One Campus project, introducing the administrative assignments for the reconfigured grade spans, providing a process and a timeline for these staffing assignments, and providing a process and timeline for transition activities as well. Just really looking at this from a 3-year angle prior to the new building opening. And I'm not going to go through this slide, but just this is the slide that you've seen several times now, with general activities that are taking place over the next 2.5 years prior to the opening of the new school and the reconfiguration. So I just introduced this again to staff. They've seen this a couple of times as well. There's some highlights there. All right, going back to administrative organization. Again, these are projections, but a lot of staff were asking, and so we want to just answer that question, and instead of saying, oh, well, we'll wait, we're just going to answer it now. And the answer is the new primary school. Most of these seem pretty obvious, but it would be Corey Muncie and Mallory Orczachowski will be the administrators at the new primary school, pre-K to 1. Mabel I. Wilson School, which is 2 to 4. Again, this is in 2027-28, beginning in there. Carol MacArthur will move over and become principal of Wilson, and then we'll need to hire another assistant principal. And again, we would be doing this whether we were moving grade spans or not. We just have a lot more students every year, and in 3 years we'll have even more. So we'll be opening the Wilson School with 504 students, the new primary school with 435 in 2027. Greeley Middle School will have just 1 program, won't be 2 schools anymore, and it will be grades 5 through 8. And Monty Selby and Jason Riviere will stay as the administrators in 5-8. We'll open with 769 students. And Greeley High School, there's no change there. Same administration. Enrollment actually will be more than 631 in 2027. That number needs to be adjusted a little bit. School schedules. So again, these could be tweaked, and I did say this to the staff when I met with them, that right now, if we're using the same schedule we have now, the secondary schedule would be 5 to 12 and not 6 to 12. That means the high school and middle school, 5-8 middle school would be on the same schedule, would not be running 2 schedules at the middle school anymore. And the elementary schedule will now be pre-K through 4, Mabel A. Wilson School and the new school. Again, using the same time frame that we have. Those time frames are certainly could be tweaked. I personally, this is my personal opinion, and I think the opinion of many staff that I've already talked to about this recently, they would like to get back to 8 o'clock for a secondary schedule and not be at 7:50. And I think that's something that we just need to look at our bus routes again, and how we're able to pull that off.
The students might agree with that too.
Many students would agree with that. Staff, and actually I went to a forum I attended a student forum last year where the students brought that up very, very much. So, right?
I filled that out.
Were you at that forum?
I filled out a form.
Oh, you filled out a form? No, there was a forum.
A Google form.
Staffing shifts. So the new grade configurations resulting with adding a 4th building to the campus will require a shift in staffing pre-K to 8, and really pre-K to 4, pre-K to 5 mostly. But pre-K to 8, we're using that broad kind of stroke. Most 6-8 staff, I would assume, will want to stay where they are and would stay where they are in their positions. So these are the 3 goals that the leadership team wanted to make sure that all of our staff knew. That first, as we look at staff shifts and reassignments, or meeting the needs of all of our students, that's number 1. Number 2, that we are asking staff, especially those directly impacted, what their preference is, and using that input about making assignments. So asking staff directly, what are they interested in, and making sure that the process is fair, credible, and consistent across grade spans that we're talking about. So then it was important, and this was where some tweaks happened, and we got staff input early on about these tweaks, and it was very important input. So during this current year that we're in, we are actually about 2/3 of the way through this process already of developing what we call full-time equivalent rosters for the new grade spans. So in other words, what's the number of staff? We have formulas for some of this, and then some of it is based on our programming and our services and our service models. And basically leaving names out of it, not staff names actually in this, but just looking at a roster of the new school, Wilson School, which will be 2-4, and the middle school 5-8. For example, how many office staff do we need? How many administrators? We've already kind of developed the administrative one. How many nursing staff do we need? How many teachers? And a lot of those things are based on formulas that we've had for many years, but we have to go and redo all of this now that we have different grade spans and we have a new building. So that we're in the process of doing that. We're actually getting pretty close, the leadership team, of getting to the end of that process. And then we have already started, we're actually setting meetings right now to start looking at programming, and this was where staff gave us input, which I think was very important from the beginning. Teachers and support staff told us, you cannot ask us to provide a preference on our staffing if you haven't started answering some of these programming questions first. So that was a tweak that we made. We had kind of put this programming part towards the latter end of the 3 years, and then we started moving it up. So we'll be starting those conversations right in January. And we'll be starting with 5th grade, for example. 5th grade is really in the middle, and it's this transition point for 5th grade because right now it's in a 4-5 elementary setting. It will now be in a middle school setting. What does 5th grade look like? Is it an elementary model? Is it more of a middle school or middle level model? Is it kind of its own thing in a middle school? What does it look like? Special education programs. We're gonna be looking at how we place our special education programs. At GMS 4-8, for example, we have one FLS life skills program at GMS 4-8, but we have 2 behavior programs at GMS 4-8. We run several resource rooms at 4-8. So these are the kinds of programs and delivery models that we need to review again. MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems of support, or RTI as many people know it. Looking at those services across the board and making sure that we have services in each of our schools, and what kind of model are we looking at. Allied arts. For example, I'm going to throw this out as an example, STEM. We offer STEM starting 4th grade, but we'll have a 2-4 school. Does that mean that we look at STEM again in a 2-4 setting? So those are the kinds of questions that we need to answer. Mental health services, making sure that we've got enough social workers and counselors in each school for the grade span that we're talking about. So these are programming questions that need to be resolved sooner than later. So that program planning is starting in January. It actually has started already, but we'll be formally starting that in January. Those conversations will continue well into next year, the second year of the 3 years before all of this changes. And then at the end of 25-26, we will be formally asking all of our elementary staff, pre-K to 5, what their staff requests are. So current pre-K to 5. 6-8 is a question mark. Again, most 6-8 staff, I assume, will want to just stay where they are. It's not, I don't want to say it's not directly impacting 6-8, because 5th grade will be moving into that grade span. But I think for most folks who are in 6-8, they will be staying in their current positions. They'll be in the same building as well. We'll be sending a Google survey out to all staff at this point, and we'll be requesting if, their input. They don't have to if they don't want to. They can leave it to chance, but we're asking everybody, what is your preference, pre-K through 5? And then the leadership team will take all of those requests and then start making final assignments, placement assignments, based on hopefully providing as many staff as possible with their preference. Staff assignments in 26-27, if we don't get to it in 25-26, we left ourselves a placeholder for the very beginning of the 3rd year before all of this changes, 26-27. So if it is not at the end of that previous year, it would be at the very beginning of this year. And then from there, we will begin transition planning. This is where I'd be talking with the board well before this year, obviously, about including some dedicated time in the calendar. So perhaps it's we're looking at early releases a little bit differently, and might have an early release, and might look at our early release schedule overall, so that we can have some dedicated time for all the staff at the new grade levels, the new grade spans, to get together with their new colleagues and their new administration at least 3 times during the second half of that school year of 26-27. And that's just to begin the transition process, so that we're not just completely doing it when everybody's coming back in August of 27. So again, that's a calendar question. That's something the board will get as a recommendation, I assume, from the leadership team, and then would vote on that as part of the calendar. And then obviously we don't want to forget, and we certainly talked about this a little bit more with certain staff, but there's a closure that comes with actually 2 of our schools. So 4-5 is no longer going to be a school, GMS 4-5. And Mabel Wilson, as we know it, pre-K to 3, will no longer be. So it will be split up. So we're talking about closure activities, and the leadership team put that out there. Staff have talked about it. They want to just make it, we don't know what that looks like yet, but we want to make sure that that is part of our conversation in 26-27 with our staff, with our students, and with our families as we make those closure pieces. And then moving. Again, as in talking with staff, we don't want to say, oh, well, we'll just figure it out. We'll move you. No, this is a lot of people moving in a very short period of time. We'll have to hire a moving company. We know that's part of, we've talked about that from the very beginning. That's nothing new. Our staff cannot pull off this kind of move and without some help, so we'll be doing that. And we need time for our staff to be able to pack and unpack. We have a ton of people who are moving. So these are all things, again, we don't have the details yet, but we knew we had to put this in our schedule and continue talking about it. help the leadership team and the staff keep that at the forefront of our process. So right now we have sent out, now that I've completed staff meetings, a staff survey went out earlier this week, asking staff for questions, wonderings, ideas that they have on the process. And it was sent out earlier this week, and it's staff have a couple weeks to fill that out and then get it back. The leadership team will take that feedback and then review it. And then we will get back to staff as to any themes, et cetera, that we need to tweak on the process or get back to staff about. So just wanted to let the board know, keep you informed as well, that these are all things that we have been talking about as a leadership team since this summer, and just making sure that we had something in place. So we're not saying, oh, we're a year in already, let's start talking about this stuff. We knew we needed to talk about it and get with staff as soon as possible.
Thanks, Jeff. And I know this is really happy to have this at this stage because it's a years-long process, given how many changes that are going to be happening. One of the things, and I think this is building off of what Sarah mentioned earlier as well, is there wasn't much mention in this presentation around pre-K, and I don't know if some of that is because, you know, the pre-K program is now pretty small, and so we have to really be thinking about that differently. It's not just moving current teachers, it's that the programming may need to change, and I'd love for you to take a few minutes to talk about where that process is going to sit. And then also, when we were planning the new school project, I know that we had a focus on making sure we had a lot of flexible space in where the pre-K classes were being planned, because, you know, the issue around 3-year-olds had already come up, and wanted to make sure that we did have flexibility for a potential expansion or switch in that programming.
Yep. I'll just say, first of all, Julie Olson, who's the Director of Instructional Support, will be here at the board meeting, at the next board meeting, and she is going to be providing an update to the board. And so I'll obviously cue her. I think she was already planning to just talk about pre-K in general. But the state legislature did vote in the last session. Actually, it was the last session, right? Okay, I was trying to remember which year. In the last session, that they were going to move 3-year-olds into the public school setting from CDS, and it was going to happen over a 3-year period. So we did not opt into year 1, and we're not opting into year 2. We're opting into the 3rd year in this process. And I know a lot of districts around us are also doing the same thing. They're all opting into the 3rd, or many of them are opting into the 3rd year. And I think part of that is that we have this building project, and we can't be making all these decisions simultaneously. So we need some time to sort this out, and it was a strategic priority. It was removed as a strategic priority because we're not ready to talk about it. But it definitely needs discussion. Now, we have a pre-K program for 4-year-olds. It's a small program. We have 32 students. We have 16 in the morning and 16 in the afternoon. And it will be up to the board through strategic priorities and planning. And I think that planning process will probably have to start happening next year, obviously for the 3rd year. But it will be a plan that will go through the curriculum committee, will need to come to the board and be approved as well, whatever that plan is. The plan could be anything from keeping the model we have now and working with our providers in the community for the 3-year-old component, or doing something anywhere in between, a hybrid model. There is space in the new building that's flex space near the pre-K rooms. We only have 2, I think, I can't remember how many now are designated, but there are 5 rooms in that area, and the rest are designated as flex rooms for any enrollment increases, along with other flex rooms in the building to handle enrollment increases. So the pre-K piece is not on here because we were not planning to start that discussion this early.
Thank you for that clarification. Other questions on the presentation? No? Okay, great.
Just me.
Oh, just you. Go for it.
Sorry, just me. So I have just some kind of out loud concerns about the fifth graders going to the 220 dismissal. I'm just thinking of the kids coming home after school, and family plans would have to change. I don't know how many people would be comfortable with their 10-year-old coming off the bus and being home alone for several hours. And I know it's not that much difference, but if you spent some time with a fifth grader and you've spent some time with a sixth grader, and so I've been doing after school care for 23 years, and I typically have 2 to 3 students that are sixth graders that end up coming off the bus for several months because they're not comfortable going home. They're just not. They've never done it before. So I just kind of want to say that out loud in regards to an after-school plan, what it would look like for our rec program for staffing, because that's going to be a huge shift for them because they're now going to have to plan for students an hour earlier. And what's that functionality look like? And I know that that's my world. This is where I live. So I'm curious also about what the parent input is going to be on that shift, that timing shift, because I have a couple of parents and families, current clients that would impact, and I know that would create challenges for their lives, just shifting their work schedules. So I did some digging because this is my world. And so I did a quick search of schools, local communities that are 5-8, and Cape has a 5-8 program. They have 435 students. They do have a 220 dismissal. Gray New Gloucester has just under 500 students in their 5-8 program. They have a 2 p.m. dismissal. But through the rec program, they have a specific 5-6 after-school program for that grouping. And the way their school functions is that classes, sports, and activities are either 5-6 or 7-8. So that was just a really interesting kind of way to operate the school. Now, SOPO is 420 students, and they have 5-6 go 8:45 to 3, and then 7-8 goes 7:55 to 2:10. So very similar to what we've done. So that was one, and I have other questions.
No, I appreciate it, Sarah, because these are things. I actually added a couple of things to our list that we need to start talking about. But fifth grade is a big adjustment that we know is coming. There's adjustment around a lot of different things. Fifth grade being in that facility is obviously not new, but being in one program that's part of the 6-8 program. Yeah. And I think some of that we have to talk about internally first. What does fifth grade, the structure of fifth grade even look like? That was before we even go and start talking with parents about it. But there's all the auxiliary things that you've brought up as well as busing. Because busing is going to look different. It's a secondary schedule that we're not talking about. So those are things that are part of our communication. We've known this ever since this plan was proposed over a year ago now. We knew that these were conversations that needed to be had. But I appreciate you bringing up a couple of those early for us to start thinking about this early. It's part of our early list.
And I had talked with Rec last year about some of these concerns. What I would love to see is this actually give more programming for sixth graders, because I know there is a gap. And so maybe this would help.
There's a void. There's a massive void.
Give more opportunities that we are building in because of the fifth graders that would have more options for some of those older middle schoolers, because it's a big gap.
And I think combining, just the idea of a 5th, 6th, obviously we need to talk to Pete about capacity and those kinds of things and timing, but not only about rec, but sports, and how we handle sports, manage sports at the middle level as well, and intramurals and all that stuff. Yeah. So those are good questions.
Interesting. Do you want to go to anybody else, or is it? I have more questions.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I did notice one of my questions was about staffing, or mental health counselors and social work, and what will that look like? Adding a kind of, and it's adding an additional grade to GMS, but I understand it's taking it away. But with the shift and the separation of 4-5, which have been a block for 30 years, 20, 30 years. 4-5 at Memorial School were solid for a lot of years. So
You mean the block for?
just the 4-5 as
A
unit.
4-5? It's probably been 20 years.
It's probably been,
Yeah, 10 years, 11 years here.
Here.
And
But-
probably 10 before that, if I had to guess. Something like that.
yeah, okay. So just concerning, how are we gonna make sure that we, and you hit that one, I feel like that's on your radar. So one of the questions was about a two STEM classroom going down to one, and what does that mean for a room to be used all day, and how will that impact planning for teachers? And I think some of that is weeds, but as we're looking at our rooms and they're shifting, making sure that our teachers, especially with the shifting of early release for the 5th grade teachers, it's gonna totally change what their early release planning time looks like, and how can we honor them?
And that's why we wanted to start with 5th grade first. They're actually the group that we're focused on right now. There's going to be, there's a meeting that's being scheduled right now, the first meeting, with the whole team and any staff affiliated with 5th grade, and Carol MacArthur, Monty Selby, Jason LaRiviere, and others will be involved in those conversations. Because part of it is we need to just start talking about what does 5th grade even look like in a 5, 8, 7.
Playing some, and
Yeah, because it
playing
answers some of these, it starts to answer
it
some of these
does.
questions.
It really
after we
does.
get there, and that was one of the things that I heard at the 4-5 staff meeting was, until that's settled, we don't even know if we want to work at that, in a middle
100%.
level or work in an elementary setting.
Yeah.
You got to give us more information. So this is why we're starting these conversations early.
The other question was about allied arts, and will they be spread about all 4 grade levels, and how does that work?
All to be decided. I mean, it's right now the allied arts schedules are obviously different, 4, 5, 6, 8, if we're talking about just the middle level. But there's other questions, like I raised about the STEM. Do we go lower with STEM? We already have it at 4th. If we're a 2-4 school, these are questions we've got to answer.
Right.
These are programming questions we've got to answer. And so these are the things that we have to keep talking about, and we only have 2.5 years to do it. So that's why we're starting early on these things.
I know it kind of seems like they're weeds, but they're very fundamental, just pieces to the program. And I mean, you think of a health teacher. Is the health teacher now going to have 4 different grades to teach to?
That would be based on FTE.
And how does some of that shake out?
Right. Even the physical education classes and swimming, and how we, do our swimming program, is that going to change? I think a lot of things will stay the same, and it's just adjusting FTEs based on that. But there will be program changes for sure. There has to be. Yep.
Are you good? You can keep going if you have more. No problem. Great. Any other? Yep.
So Jeff, based on slide, under school organization, and I know you said the high school number might be a little bit different, but it looks like that's about 2,339 students, which if you look at Rebecca Wendell's enrollment projections from a couple of years ago, that lines up. I think we're still using her most recent projections.
Yes,
correct?
we are.
Yeah. So can you remind us, or I don't know, Steve might know this better, but what percentage we'd be? I know it's kind of tough to say all 4 combined, but how full the buildings would be as of 27, 28.
Steve might be the better person to answer. I could give a rough I guess, or based on what I know. But, or it might be something that we can get back to you on.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Yeah, and that's absolutely
I
fine.
mean, I can speak very generally, and I will speak generally that the new primary school will definitely have, a good amount of space. It is projected to go up about 100 students over about 7 or 8 years. But that's the highest projection that Rebecca looked at, and she said that there's really a cap off of our class sizes at some point. It starts to just level off. And so that was based on that. So it opens with 435, but could go up. Now, the question is also pre-K, and if pre-K affects that. And I think there's a lot of good reasons why we have to be very, very, very careful about how we approach pre-K, because it does impact the enrollment of this school. So these are things that have to be balanced out. Mabel A. Wilson School, the projections from 2027 to 2033, it goes from 504 to, I think it's, don't quote me, 620 something. Yes.
Well, it was pre-K through 3, I think, originally.
Yeah, these are the new
Yeah.
spans.
Okay.
These are the new spans that she also looked at.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, so by 2033, 34, excuse me, it's 651 was the number that Rebecca gave us.
Okay.
So, and that's the top out that we have. Now, some of the numbers kind of flatten at some point, and there's actually some decreases in numbers as well. It just depends on what year and what school we're talking about. The high school, which doesn't change, will be well over 700 students, but the high school has been well over 700 before, and I've talked about this before, but we can use space differently in a high school that we can't do in a different grade configuration. So the other piece to just mention is that the middle school, we have duplicate services right now because we run 2 different schools. So when Steve did the space study, that's what they found, that the space study showed that we can handle the enrollment at a 5-8 building in that facility without having to worry about space. So the short answer is we're fine with space based on Rebecca's numbers, based on the space study that Steve Blatt conducted for us in all of our facilities. That's the short answer. Steve, I don't know if you have anything to add. We can do percentages if that's helpful.
I mean,
That's
down
the
to about
general
the
answer.
4th place would be nice, but decimal place, yeah. No, I'm good. I just wanted to reassure because it comes up every once in a while. Have we taken into account the new developments? Have we taken into account this? And my understanding is Rebecca Wendell has, when she made these projections, she knew about the developments that were going in because they've been planned for a while. So when we look at the numbers for this, projected for opening, and when we look few years down the road from there.
We are not opening full. I mean, that was very clear from our prior boards that we are not going into this school year anywhere close to the top of our projections because we wanted to ensure that we had space, which is part of the reason why we ended up with that expansion to MIW is
it was to get in front of it.
Yeah.
The expand. We know it's coming. We wanted to get in front of it. It needed to be part of the project. We didn't want to say, 5 years from now, oh no, what are we going to do?
Right.
We know the enrollment is coming at Mabel A. Wilson, and we wanted to get in front of it and make sure that addition was going on. That was an important step that the board took to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to add one thing. A lot of the questions that I think we're all coming up with about programming, as you said, they do need to be brought up, and it's great we're thinking of it, but also it's the professional teachers and staff, they're going to live it, so they probably have thought of way more even questions than us. So I guess I would request when the principals-to-be of these respective schools, when they report out to us, if they could give us some very specific sort of lists of the teachers brought up this and they brought up that, and just so we're tracking together, like we brought up all this stuff, have they brought it up too? And whether they have answers or not yet, but just help us know that they've kind of tracked along the same sort of themes, things we've brought up. It would be helpful for us to know and the public to know what they've considered.
And one thing I forgot about, and Christina just reminded me, each of the new grade spans will have a transition committee of staff, and whoever the administration is, the administration will lead that, but there'll be staff members on that transition committee, and that is really for internal transition, not just programming decisions, but down to details, like how do we do lunch and those kinds of things, and get those sorted out so that we're not doing that right before all of this changes. We want those things sorted out prior to. So those are things that a lot of it will be handled internally, but I will certainly carry that message to the administrators.
And I assume the transition teams will be reporting to you, and then you'll be telling us what they're.
No, the transition committees will really be internal for that grade span, the newest grade span, working with the principals. Mari will be working with all three of them, because we'll have three at that point, not the high school, because it's not a new transition. But she'll be working for curriculum, Julie will be working on special education. So they'll be really reporting to themselves at that point.
And then maybe back to the board at some point.
And then they'll clue us in
Yes.
at some point, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, not to continue the conversation, but I'm going to. So I have a pretty significant concern specifically for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teams, because the 3rd grade team will have a new leader, and we all know that like schools are a reflection of their principal. Like that, just that culture is just like is embedded throughout the school. 4th grade will have a new building that they have to kind of get used to, and 5th grade will also now have new leadership. And I know 4th and 5th are particularly tight. They're a really tight group. They work really well together. I know that like that Mabel I. Wilson, I've heard, is tightening every day, and I think that culture is really strong, and we are about to blow up that culture a little bit. And I think we've got really strong leaders to be able to handle that. And so I really appreciate this transition team. But I also want to make sure our focus is, while operational and physical, about like class dynamics and where people are moving, but it's also about the culture that we set to make sure these people really get to know each other, get to know the leader, get to know like what the standards of practice are, because we've been focusing a lot on these like teacher surveys and staff surveys, and we are about to take a big risk. It could be very positive and everyone kind of works together, and it could be really negative, and teacher retention is important to all of us. And so I think focusing on culture and that relationship building and getting to know each other probably needs double the emphasis than we're even kind of suggesting now. So any type of like real introduction to not only the people but the buildings that they're going to work in now, because it's going to be like, for our 4th grade staff going into Mabel I. Wilson, it's a very different space, So I think just if we focus like on cultural elements of that, I would feel much more confident throughout. But I'm so happy you guys are thinking of a transition in this early on, and like it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we'll need the board's help with that 3rd year, especially because next year with transition committees, I assume, we know that part of their work will be planning for when all the staff can get together that 3rd year. Mm-hmm. But there needs to be chunks of time for us to do that. We'll certainly take some of the full days that we have, but we need to also have some other times, because there's really usually only a full day in the second half of the year. There's usually just one. We need time, so I think we have to think about the calendar a little bit differently. I'm not saying blow the whole calendar up, but just a little bit more time that 3rd year, so our staff can get together and start building culture before the next school year of 27, 28.
Yeah, good point. All right. Anything else? Okay, great. So we have 2 items for action, both related to the One Campus project. Really excited to be able to move these forward. And the first is around the site plan. So I will ask Tim, as the building committee chair, if you'd like to make that.
Sure. I move to approve the site plan draft as presented.
Thanks, Tim. Can I have a second?
Second.
Great. Thanks, Christina. Any additional conversations, questions? Okay. All in approval? Awesome. It's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now is our second item for action, and I will ask Jesse if he'd like, as the chair of the turf committee, to present this item for action.
Mine was shorter.
I move that the vote entitled "Vote to Approve Purchase of Artificial Turf Field and Related Site Work" be adopted in form presented to this meeting. And do I have to read the whole thing?
Why don't you?
Okay, I'll read the. So this is what it says. It says, titled "Vote to Approve Purchase of Artificial Turf Field and Related Site Work." Whereas on June 11, 2024, the voters of Maine School Administrative District Number 51, the district, approved a $53,492,000 locally funded school construction project, which includes a new artificial turf field. Whereas on November 20, 2024, the Building Committee and Artificial Turf Field Committees voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Directors that the district acquire an artificial turf surface that uses no infill and is PFAS-free and recyclable. And whereas that installation of the turf system requires site work for proper grading and drainage, now therefore the School Board of Maine School Administrative District Number 51 hereby votes as follows. 1. To follow the recommendation of the Artificial Turf Committee to acquire artificial turf that uses no infill and that is PFAS-free and recyclable. 2. To direct the superintendent to take steps to seek competitive bids for the acquisition of the turf surface, including shock pad. And 3. To direct the superintendent to take steps to separately seek competitive bids for the site work related to the turf system.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. Can I get a second?
A second.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, so I know that was long, and I appreciate you reading it. Just I didn't want anybody to not understand what the vote was that was on the table, and this obviously is going to continue to be shared publicly. And we had the really wonderful presentation of the turf recommendation at our meeting 2 weeks ago, and we had quite a fruitful conversation then. And so this is just formalizing that to a vote for action, as Jesse said, to move forward with the number of steps for a competitive bid for that project. And as mentioned in the motion, that would include two parts. One is a bid that is for the turf service that includes the shock pad, and the second is competitive bids for the site work. We could put that out separately. Two separate groups could bid. Same group could bid on both. It just presents some options. So just want to open up for more discussion or questions around the vote. Go
I'll
ahead.
start because I want to answer Sarah's question.
Great.
So I know you're worried about cost, and that's fine. If you think the school's going to cost way more, if you think Steve and his estimators, I mean, we don't know what the future holds. Things might get twice as expensive or 3 times as expensive. But I can say this turf project will come in under the budget that we promised. So in looking at it, like, we're looking at a turf surface that doesn't require infill. So even though it's a high quality turf so that it will shed fewer microplastics and last longer, we won't have infill. There'll be less maintenance. We won't have to drag the fill. So there's a number of ongoing savings there. We also made sure we're not like doing a bunch of weird extra stuff. We're not putting a huge tiger logo in the middle like some schools spend $50,000 doing. Like, we were very budget conscious in that, like, we want a surface kids can play on. We want it to have the lowest maintenance cost possible. I mean, so we were very budget conscious in, like, we want to provide what we said we were going to, but we're not putting in fancy extra stuff that would be cool to have, but also would add cost. So, you know, as much as we can, and if you still can't vote for it, I think that's fine. Like, you have to vote your conscience, and like, if you're worried about it, that's fine. But like, we tried as hard as we could to find the best product that would come in. And to the points that were raised about the drainage and being worried about chemicals and lead, I will say I took those concerns very seriously. I talked to the folks in Portsmouth. I've read every report about every poisoned water system from turf fields, and those are real. Those have happened in the past. There have been turf fields that have poisoned people's water supplies. And I wouldn't have moved this forward if I thought that the turf surface that we are recommending would do that. And I've looked at their testing data, and we can require additional, we can require our own EP 537 test or 1337 test or total organic fluorine test. If we don't trust that they did their testing appropriately, we can make them do it again. And we have the testing data here that shows, you know, that they tested for compliance of leaching metals to include lead, cadmium, chromium, tin, zinc, DOC, and mercury, total lead in the synthetic fibers, extractable organic halides, EOXs, PAHs, polycyclic or aromatic hydrocarbons, and PFAS. So it's, you know, I've looked at information that tells me that we're not going to poison the water, but I think it's reasonable to ask that we test. You know, like, I don't know what it costs to test the water once a year, but like, we probably should. And I don't think any of that would be coming from, frankly, the field. I think, you know, there's going to be plenty of PFAS coming from everything else in our world, unfortunately. So I just want you to know, like, I take your concerns very seriously, and I looked into all of these things, and I wouldn't be moving any of this forward if I thought the field we were installing is any worse than it needs to be. It's going to contribute some very small amount of microplastics because it's a plastic field, and that's unfortunate, but like the smallest amount possible, given that we're installing a plastic field. So
I do wonder if we then, so the PFAS-free thing I forgot who said it earlier in public comment, but we, and Jesse like led this, but like we went beyond the normal PFAS-free. There is that like PFAS-free quote, like the testing that we were looking at and Jesse really felt comfortable with, and Jesse you can definitely speak more articulately to this, was beyond that. And so I wonder whether or not we have to define our definition.
Right, because it could, I mean, they could still
and the
find,
test,
like,
right?
Like it's PFAS free according to the test we're going to require of them.
Right,
So,
yeah. Which is much more stringent than some companies say. Like,
right,
you're
so the 537 would be the least. And all companies are PFAS free according to the 537 testing, which just looks for the worst PFAS at a certain threshold, right?
So maybe we can keep it in there, but when we put it on the website,
so
we can put like an asterisk of what our definition is.
And all these things, the devil is in the details of what we actually put out to bid. But know that I take your concerns very seriously, and that, like, you know, we're also going with a manufacturer, I think, who has the highest testing standards because they operate heavily in Europe, which is much more highly regulated than we are. And so, you know, all of their products, they're declared compliant with the requirements of REACH within the European Union and the EPA Prop 65 criteria in the US, which again is not it's not a high bar to pass in the US. It's much harder to pass. Did you? Well, we need to get together because I have responded to every email and I've talked to folks on the phone. Like, yeah, absolutely. If you emailed me and I didn't get back to you, I apologize. I think I have responded to every person who has ever emailed me. You might have emailed the wrong email address because my name is 13 characters long plus a J. So it's entirely possible. And if so, I apologize. But like, I will share with you every document I have. I have hundreds of them. Like, I will get you anything you want, and we'll talk after. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, again, it's like, it's a field made of plastic. So if you don't like a plastic field, don't vote for it. It's like, it's not a feel-good thing. It's a surface that our students can play on. And I will say, after all of the other things, the thing that I came back to is that one of the most dangerous things our kids can do is drive late at night. And so part of this field is keeping kids off the road so they can stay on campus and play and practice here for as long as they want. You know, probably not 24 hours a day. So from my perspective, there's going to be some minor amounts of microplastics, not as many as if we had 400,000 pounds of infill of microplastics, but some amount of microplastics will come off this field. But for me, it's worth the trade-off of keeping kids off the road late at night because that's one of the most dangerous things they can do. And so in the balance, I think it's worth installing this field just for that.
Okay,
I just want to underscore one more thing, which you touched on, which our goal was and is in the vote PFAS free. And what I learned that means is there are products, the product we're seeking doesn't have any added. I mean, when they were making it, manufacturing it, they were putting it through extruding it, and it was using PFAS ointment or gel to get it through. So it was. So they've developed methods to not use that, and that's what we're going for. So with that in mind, it's PFAS free when it leaves the factory. But everyone needs to understand that once that field is laying down, what is proper English? It's going to rain on it. It's going to snow on it. We're going to drop our water bottles and our plastic sneakers are going to run on it. So PFAS is going to end up on it just like it's on your lap right now. It's on my head. So it's an illusion to think there will be no PFAS. We're saying there's not going to be any, we're not putting any down, but it's raining on us. You know, the kids eat snow. We keep telling them don't eat snow. There's PFAS in it. And they don't understand that, and some parents don't understand that. So I just want to be sure the public understands that. We're delivering in this what we promised, but we live in a world where the PFAS is literally raining on us.
Ooh, I have a fun anecdote about recycling as well, because some people, again, I've gotten emails, and I'm sorry if I didn't respond to yours, and we will get together and we can talk as much as you want. But so one of the things people have emailed me about is that like recycling is a myth with plastics, and there are many types of recycling with plastics, and some are better than others. But the Hearts of Pine field that is going to be laying down at Fitzpatrick Stadium, they ripped up the old surface, and that surface was ripped up by Tenkate, the company that we're planning to go with, and was sent down to ExxonMobil's recycling facility to be broken down into feedstocks for new things. So, you know, it is possible to recycle them, and, you know, the Hearts of Pine and Fitzpatrick Stadium is doing that with that field. And again, we won't be able to recycle this field until A, we install it, and B, we use it for 12 plus years, but it's technically possible now, and there's an example of it locally. And I'd hope that whoever is on the school board will pay the extra money to recycle it in 12 plus years, but I thought that was a fun
you
local
won't be
anecdote.
Here, Jesse?
Probably not.
Term limit.
Term
limit. We'll come back. We'll have a reunion.
There'll be public comments.
Any other questions? Yes.
Well, I guess just, I would frame this maybe as like to the point of the devil being in the details. What we're committing to here with this vote versus those issues that may still be unresolved, some of which were brought up this evening in terms of the soil management, the stormwater runoff, knowing that those conversations are continuing. So how do those details that still need to be resolved? I mean, potentially even the timing, I guess, I don't know, but just trying to understand specifically what we are committing to with this vote and kind of how we would see this then moving forward in those conversations that have yet to be resolved, coming to bear on.
I'll give my understanding. So I think this vote allows us to put the bid together that would include all of the requirements that we have put forth for what the materials would be, anything that we would require of somebody who responds to that bid. Now, as far as the testing goes, I think that we want to have a broader plan than just the turf field of how we're doing testing. So I don't feel that that's contingent on this plan. I would like it to be an ongoing item on the building committee's agenda for that to be, because it's not about this one field. And there's many other opportunities I think that we have as a district and as a board to address the concerns, the environmental concerns beyond this turf field. And honestly, because it's been focused so much on it, I feel like there's a lot of other opportunities of things that we can do that we should be discussing actively around environmental impacts of everything that's going on, not only in this project, but in the campus in general. So for that, it's not necessarily tied to this vote. This is about like that we are going to put together this package for materials that have been recommended from the building committee, and that's two separate ones. So the groundwork and then the field itself. Jeff, what would you like to add?
I think you've covered most of it, Leanne. The only thing I would add is that those conversations are part of the whole site plan itself. So the drainage issues, we have a meeting set up next week with the town. There's a sizable amount of people that will be part of that meeting, including our architects and everything, trying to sort that part out, which is the easement part of it. And then there's the issue of the arsenic, which is encapsulated from previous projects from 20 years ago. But now it's being moved, and there's question marks about where should it be moved and how should we deal with that. But those are quite frankly questions that have to do with the whole site plan of the campus itself, and how do we resolve those. And we also are having meetings on those items as well. So they're not resolved yet. However, they're part of the whole piece of it, and they also will be reviewed by the planning board. Obviously, they want to know, and the Department of Environmental Protection is very involved in this, especially the arsenic one.
So regardless of what we vote, there's still planning board, environmental protection, other things that are going on related to the site plan and all the work that's going on campus. And I think for the artificial turf, we separated this item specifically to ensure that, one, we were being, transparent about some of the decision-making and recommendations and work that was going on to get us to this point, but then to also be able to have that part of the project, for us to feel good about that part of the project initially, and be able to put some bid materials together. But there's some of these other things that are also taking place in tandem. Did that answer?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And I do really appreciate all the work of the committee and Jesse, your leadership on that. It was really important to me that we met the criteria that we said we would, and
Thanks,
you all
appreciate
really
it.
seem to have gone above and beyond, so thank you.
Just want to point out on the record, Glenn, you got my email wrong, so I never got your email. I didn't ignore you. You missed the first L. I told you I have a long last name. It's J. Lamar Vincent. You sent it to J. Amar Vincent. So, I would have been mortified if I had not gotten back to you, because I literally respond to anyone who emails us, and very few people do. So, I'm so sorry.
I want to say something. We disagree, but there are people here. This guy has returned every email I've sent Mr. Porter. I don't think I'd return my email. I don't know how my wife doesn't even. And this woman, Kim Vine, has been to my house. And I don't know if I would go after a while.
It's lovely.
Seriously, we disagree. I do have a lot of respect. I really do. I just care about the kids the way you do. And that's at the heart of this. She gave me your number. I give you a shout. I gotta tap out of here. Surgery 3 months ago. Tonight, I choose to drink instead of taking Seriously.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
So here's where I'm at. Jesse convinced me, and I think the driving's a really good point. I think I pivoted when we thought about the amount of use on that one field. I always thought in my high school, our fields were fine. If we fix the drainage, grass is better to play on. The problem is my high school had a football field, multiple soccer fields, a field hockey, right? So the amount of use on that field is a real thing, and so I feel really good with the product that you chose, and that's why I think the building committee we recommended it. So I'm all in with these bullets. Where I struggle, and I'm still challenged by, and I just want to note for the record, and maybe it's not within this, and maybe you guys can ease my anxiety around it a little bit, is timing. Because I think we've talked about from a building committee the opportunity, and as a board, the opportunity to find outside funding to supplement some of the turf field things, whether or not that is maybe that tiger logo that you're looking for. Maybe it's a sound system. Would we come up with something different to improve the experience if we had more time? The other thing is just if I were building a house and I planned on putting a pool in that house, I wouldn't do the pool first. I would do the house. And our main focus this whole time has got to be about the school. And I think if you looked at how much we've talked about the actual school versus turf, the actual school has gotten maybe 5%, I feel like, of the conversation. And it's the majority of the project. And so I think I am fine if it gets installed next year. I'm just hesitant at I feel like there are multiple benefits to waiting another year or two as we answer some of these questions that people have, as we answer some of our own questions, as we look to see if we could get supplemental funding from a Hannaford or anything, something like that. So I haven't seen the positive other than the win of we put something down. It's, and this is important, but like it's the first thing that we can get in. People see the benefit of it. They see that like kids are playing on it earlier. They're excited about it. And that's great. I just want to make sure that we aren't going to regret it 3 years from now, 4 years from now, because if we just had a little bit more time to think about it, would we have benefited from that? So I don't know if that necessarily is within this, because I would vote for this as written 100% of the time. I do wonder if we need to think about timing, and maybe there's spots down the road where we can still consider that, but I'm a little anxious about it still.
And thanks for sharing that, Tim. I guess what I would just add from my perspective and why it actually relates to why I eventually came to voting for it as part of the whole campus project is, and to Jesse's point earlier, the opportunity to have this on campus to reduce 3 years worth of hundreds of children, mine included, about to be a licensed driver, driving late at night. If we can reduce that by even a year, what opportunity we have to be able to have sleep a little better at night, I guess.
Yeah, and so I know that Sophia and I can definitely attest to, I personally don't have to travel very far because I am lucky enough to have a pool right over there and a softball field down the road. But all of my friends that play fall sports and spring sports that aren't on a different type of field make like far trips, like 30, 35, 40 minutes down to wherever they can find an indoor facility. And I know soccer plays when we have rainouts or when the boys' soccer is on the field. They go down to Freeport and they play on their field, which is turf. And I know there have been a lot of stories because no matter how much you tell kids, no, don't drive with each other, don't carpool, find a different way, there's really only one grade of students who can drive people after their 9 months, and it's seniors. And I know for softball, our trip down to Twin Brooks, we don't have enough seniors to carpool all of the freshmen and sophomores who can't drive. And juniors get stuck with the kids who can't. And that it can be dangerous, especially at really far lengths when you have a kid who's had her license for like 4 months. And sometimes you get stuck with it, and that's how it works. But so I know that it can get dangerous, especially late at night with the weather and everything going on. So I think that this is really important.
Jeff, can I ask, can you review what a competitive bid process looks like? Because putting it out to seek for competitive bid, we have to, if we ask for it, we have to accept it. If it's a responsible bid, it has to meet, if it's not a responsible bid, then we don't have to accept it. But if it's a responsible bid, we would, yes. So if something comes up in the next month or two where we have more new information, how locked in are we to that competitive bid?
Once we accept it, legally we are locked in as long as we've got a contract with that vendor.
So we put out the bid. Somebody comes in at a price that is reasonable because we've put it out to competitive bid. We then have to accept it.
And if they're a responsible vendor, at that point, it's good faith at that point that we've put that out there. They've met the criteria. They've met the specs. If they're the lowest bidder, then that's the one we accept.
Right. Okay.
Do we have to accept it though? Like, what if it comes in and it's $10 million?
No, we don't have to
That's not
accept.
We don't have to
No,
accept it.
no,
Okay.
just to be,
No.
yeah, we don't have
We're
to.
getting the bids in, and then we can choose to accept it. And
Yeah.
if we accept it, then it's
Correct.
okay. Good.
Yes.
So if it
But
comes
if
in
it's
over
a
budget, we will have
Yeah.
another
That is
discussion.
correct.
Yeah,
But if it's a
Yes.
reasonable bid, we have to accept it.
and it meets
If
the
it's reasonable,
criteria.
it meets the criteria, and it's
Right.
within budget,
Right.
those things. When we
Right.
put it out in good faith, then we have to accept it in good faith.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So one of the questions I had along the same lines as Kim is, are there multiple vendors for this product?
There
How
are
do we-
not.
I was gonna say, how do we qualify, you know, a multiple bid situation when there's
Nothing
one
says you
vendor?
have to have multiple bids. So I've looked into this. So
Well,
Jesse's
would
correct.
you like would you like to hear why I disagree with our lawyers?
oh, I totally agree with your
Okay.
disagreement. Totally agree with your disagreement.
So, in Maine law, regional school units, of which MSAD is one, there's a law that says for building projects, I'm not going to read you this specifically, but building projects over $250,000, you have to put them out to competitive bid. So there's an argument to be made that a turf field is not a building, and I would make that argument, but our lawyers do not, so they think we have to put it out to competitive bid. Like, we just have to because it's in the law. There's also another section in Maine law that says you can, it's an interagency cooperation, cooperative practices law, that you can basically work with other school districts, municipalities, agencies, and so you can work together basically cooperatively to get better pricing, and therefore there are these co-ops that put out to bid or put out to RFP any number of products, and they get these bid packages back in sealed envelopes, and they look at them and they rate them. They go through functionally the same process our competitive bid process that is written into Maine law would go through, and then they see these are the reasonable vendors, give us better pricing because we have nationwide blah blah blah, and so they give you a price break. And so all of the vendors said we should go with a co-op, because then it's already, but the work's been done for you. You pick the product you want, you get better pricing, done and dusted. And so Cape has done this, Falmouth has done this, but they are municipal school districts. So there's not a law that says school buildings must be competitively bid. So there's a tension in Maine law about, can we ignore this one piece, A, because a turf field's not a building, and B, because there's this other law that says you can act cooperatively, and does the steps they take, are they functionally the same as the ones written into the competitive law? And no one's gone to court for this, so there's no clear answer about this gray area, and our lawyers don't want us to get into trouble, which is reasonable for lawyers to do for us. So they said, put it out to a competitive bid. So yes, there's one vendor that makes a non-infill product, so we will be putting it out to competitive bid with only one vendor being able to bid on it. They are a member of a cooperative, so we could get their cooperative pricing and know what that is, and we could put that into our bid and say, like, blah, blah, to not exceed TIPS co-op pricing if we want to make sure they don't give us a $10 million bid. I have talked, it's like, I don't think they would, but like, we're in this weird spot, and that is something I think that our legislators should fix, because RSUs are at a competitive disadvantage.
I knew where you were going.
That municipalities can go with these co-ops that save them time and money, and RSUs can't, because there's this weird thing in Maine law that isn't spelled out. And so unless we want to blaze the trail and potentially get sued, which says we have to put it out to competitive bid if you believe a field is a building, which I don't. But so it's weird. We're putting out something to competitive bid knowing there's only one person that can provide it. Someone else might say they can provide it and buy it from them and then resell it to us, but they probably wouldn't beat the original manufacturer on price. So
We don't know. Some company may just show up from Canada. I don't know.
I mean, somebody may invent another non-infill product in the next
Couple
month.
yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's a weird situation we're in.
And just to also, if you approve the motion that's written, the earthwork part of it is obviously, could be multiple bids.
Any number of people can do that. Yeah.
Yep. My issue just continues to be the timing, and I love the comment about building a house, you don't build the pool first.
I was going to just follow up on a comment you made earlier, Leanne, about the soils and the testing, all of that being part of a broader site work and everything. And that helps me put that in perspective where we should be thinking of that. And it's not just for the turf field. We have to be concerned about that. And in that vein, I suggest at this point, I would like to nominate Jesse to be involved with that steps. No, seriously, because the playground surfaces, I mean, same thing, folks, you know? I mean, it's the same, you know, what's it gonna be? So you're on the hook, back at you.
Just when you think you're out.
Yeah, I mean, and we will have
Getting
to
hooked
come up
fast.
with a new VRAP plan if we move soils. I mean, all of these things are going to have to get done. To your,
Yeah.
you're like, you're not wrong, and we're going to have to look into all of this and have difficult discussions about it. So, you know, this is, yeah, trying to come to consensus on one thing, but there are many other moving parts: the drainage, the VRAP, all of this other stuff.
And I would say that we have a schedule. There's many components, everything from the fact that the maintenance building is also coming before the work on the school building itself, which comes before, the parking lots. I mean, there is a schedule that we're bringing forward things to the board on, and the schedule that this was based on is the fact that this project would be bid out this spring for work to start later this spring. So just to be clear, what I believe is included in this vote. Great.
I think they, also, when we were at the building committee and turf committee meeting, the maintenance director and also the director of sports also mentioned that the current grass field was not overseeded due to the schedule we have. And also there was concern about if we shifted the date, how would that affect fall sports and spring sports? Because of shifting dates and earthwork, we would probably fall in a window where we might lose fall sports completely and we'd have to play.
No, they shifted back and said they shifted back. There was concern about that, but they shifted back and said that they could adjust the timeline to make sure that we didn't lose sports. And in fact, I actually think Pat brought up, I don't remember right now, an advantage to doing that with just the bidding process. He's not here now. I don't remember exactly what that was, but yeah, we wouldn't be impacting fall sports if we did that. And to Leanne's point, I agree this is as planned. I don't see that necessarily in the vote because I don't believe that either the turf committee or the building committee made the recommendation that they did with any time associated with it. So I think that the understanding is, look, we talked about in the turf committee that we wanted to do it in the spring, and I'm still fine with that. I'm just uneasy about it because of the costs to potentially losing a time that we might need to pursue other avenues of resourcing or answering some of the questions that people have. But that was not contingent, at least from the building committee side, like a timeline associated with it. I still don't necessarily see it in this vote either. So if it's implicit, that's good to know.
Well, it did come up at the building committee because I think you shared the same concerns, which I think I don't want to characterize. I was there, but I'm not a member of the building committee. That the building committee was supportive, I would say, of it moving forward this spring because there was a conversation. I mean, I think you shared similar.
Yeah, there was a conversation between a couple of board members there, but it wasn't contingent on the vote that we put in. We didn't say we were supportive of the material that we were putting forward. I didn't actually specifically say, and we're doing it at this point, part of this plan. But I'm so if it's implicit in this, and we're looking at that, I think as we put the bid together, that makes sense. I don't know if there's any more conversation about it. I just wanted to express in case there are other people on the board that have some unease about it, because we never discussed it collectively. We discussed partly some of those concerns in the building committee, but not as a board. And so just as we, I think it's important for us to talk about timing because the community talks about timing too. I think they'll see it.
Absolutely.
I think they'll see it installed first and they'll be like, why did we do that first? And so I think we need to have good rationale for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I believe it was talked about at the building committee, but I don't want to speak for committee members what they thought at that point that they were voting for. But it certainly was
talked
part
about.
of that conversation around timing, for sure.
Well, and Tim, I appreciate you bringing it up, and I appreciate the pool example, which I would, I guess I would take that as a much more apt analogy. Thank you. I kept wanting to say
It's
allegory,
8:30.
and I knew that wasn't it. Analogy, except for the fact that we have a budget that has been, our architect has a consultant who comes up with the pricing, and so we would not be doing this if we were concerned that we weren't going to have enough money for the building, right? So you're absolutely right. No one in their right mind would say, let's build the pool first. But this is, to me, not a reasonable analogy in the sense that we have the budget. We know that even with contingencies, we are trusting that we are okay. And I guess at some point, I feel like the time it's never going to be a perfect time. There's always going to be a question of could we do more? Could we do more research? Should we be waiting more? And then do we end up spending more money because we missed a window of opportunity, especially with us potentially being the first ones in the Northeast to have this. I do think there are opportunities there to save money because of that. So I'm taking what you are saying definitely seriously, and I'm landing on the side of, I think at some point it's okay to say we have as much information as we can humanly expect to have based on Steve's company, based on all the research Jesse did, that we can say, okay, let's do it. That's where I'm landing.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I would rather get it done. I have no reservations about the environmental stuff. I mean, it's a plastic field. It's going to shed some microplastics, and I'm okay with the amount it's going to shed. I'm okay with a perfectly green field, and we paint a logo on. I think there will be enough time between now and June, probably, when the surface gets laid down, that if the football, soccer, lacrosse, field hockey booster clubs want to raise enough money for the party light package for the LEDs, or I think there is some time that, like, if there's $50,000 worth of enthusiasm for a tiger logo, or it's not going to be a Greeley logo
Ranger.
or whatever
What's
logo.
with the tiger?
I honestly think we could probably do all those things and still be in budget, but we're trying to be fiscally responsible and not do additional things, right? So it's like we could probably still afford the party light package and the logo and some other things, but like we decided that those aren't important, that we're putting in a turf field, but there's opportunities to raise that money, and we'll see how enthusiastic people are about a logo or the touchdown light package, right? Like, and if the community wants that and wants to like fundraise for it, like, you've got 4 months, let's go, right? Like, let's see how much enthusiasm there is, and I'm okay with us not having it. And if the community wants to raise money for it, like, let's go, like, let's see how much enthusiasm there is, right? Like, people can write the check today and we could like have the money to do it tomorrow, right? Like, I don't think another year of fundraising, we're gonna like have a penny campaign to get the logo or the light package. And again, for me, just like keeping kids off the road late at night, from all of my research, which I have done because I'm insane, like, that's like the number one thing I care about. Cause like, one kid getting in an accident late at night is one accident too many, and 3 extra years potentially if we do this at the end of the building project. Like, was that 27, 28? Like, it's just too much. Like, I feel fine about this field, and I feel way better about just keeping kids closer to campus.
Please email Jesse if you want to have the touchdown lights or the party package, because he's really
No, we
into
definitely
it.
should. I'm saying we should raise that money, and I'll help do it. But
Yeah.
like,
No, there was a whole list of things that kept coming up, and I said no.
Well, the sound system before the fun party package for sure. But yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor to approve the artificial turf field recommendation?
I think I've got it.
Okay. All opposed? Okay. Thank you.
And I'll just caveat, my opposition has nothing to do with Jesse's research, the turf committee,
It's fine.
the work they've done. I truly believe that you've put in the work and chosen a product that is the best option out there. There's no question there.
Thank you. Okay. Now that all that excitement is over, we can move to the superintendent's report. Not saying that this isn't exciting,
It's okay.
but I will say everyone's leaving.
It's exciting as it's going to get.
Clearing the room.
All right. We have a little bit less this week on the superintendent's report because we just came back from break, but the book fair has begun at Mabel I. Wilson School. That's a PTO also helps, I know, with that. At middle school 4-5, fifth graders have been a lot of reading. Obviously, in our elementary grades, kids are reading a lot of places that they've been reading. At the 6-8 middle school BattleBot competition, grade 8 students wrapped up their STEM class with a robotics unit with a friendly BattleBot competition. At the high school, congratulations to Grace Rose, who is Greeley's Lion Club Student of the Month recipient.
That's my baby. Oh, really? That's my baby.
Congratulations, Mom. So congratulations. That's a huge honor. We have a student every year who receives that.
That's awesome.
And the Rangers Rock Edition, Mamma Mia, out every seat in the house, and it was very exciting and a great production. So thank you to Jen Fox for her wonderful production skills as the director, and to all of our students and the cast, Sarah Bailey for all the music in the pit in her production of that. So great job. The high school jazz band performed at the Maine Principals Conference. So that was a really nice honor. They usually select a school every year, as the Superintendent Association does as well. And this year, it was the Greeley High School Jazz Band that was invited to do that. So Kevin Rollins and his crew were there, so congratulations. National Honor Society inducted 38 new members, student members, last evening in the GCA. So congratulations to all 38 of our students. And I know that one of our students, at least, is in the room right now. Hi, Lincoln.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And the superintendent's notebook, in case you missed it, and I know nobody likes missing our newsletters, but if you did, start a new intermittent series on the data dashboard this past Monday, and we'll continue that series for the next couple of months at least. Intermittently anyway, about different aspects of the data dashboard and just different data points, whether it's a celebration or areas of improvement that we need to look closer at. I'll be highlighting those over the next 2 or 3 months. So just check that out. And that's the superintendent's report for tonight.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to our committee reports. Start with our students.
So not much to report. It's been only like a couple weeks since we've last been together, but I think everyone really enjoyed Thanksgiving break and coming back full swing. And I know I had my fair share of family interactions, and now we're back to normal schedules. But a little anecdote about the book fair. I would get so excited about the book fair. I would save up anything I found around the house, anything in my parents' pockets. I would do the laundry just so I could find the change that would come out of their pockets. And then I would spend all of my money on the trinkets that they would sell, and then I'd check out a book from the library and pretend like I bought the book. And that continued for a few years. And I brought the book back, of course, but I love the book fair.
Katie, I think I see you in the picture.
For the record, that's not saving money, that's finding money.
Yeah. Okay.
Gray area there.
Yeah.
Finding. Not.
That was good. True confessions.
Okay.
Yeah, not too much has been going on. The senior class has been very preoccupied with post-secondary planning. I think I hear about college every single day. It's really something. But we did Mamma Mia every single time I go to something that the drama club puts on. It's always like whoever I go with, it's the coolest thing ever to see students that are in your class that maybe don't talk as much, and then they're out singing a solo in front of like the whole school. It's the coolest thing ever. So many people went, and I'm always so impressed whenever I see that. And then today the whole school had an assembly that the Kyle's Care chapter at Greeley put on with, I had her name, she was a psychologist, Linda Price, and that was kind of talking about, noticing the signs of whenever you're super stressed out and how to deal with it. And we kind of get told these types of things every day, but I think that this was especially good, and there were a lot of techniques that I had never really heard about. And it was like 45 minutes, and I think we were all pretty engaged throughout it, which was impressive because we're all told to like take deep breaths every day. So that was good.
Thank you. And what the Kyle Cares program has done at our school and the kids, and with the chapter that they've really grown, and that's really exciting to hear that this assembly had a nice impact. So thank you. Kim, finance.
We have not met in the last 2 weeks. So, I don't have much to report other than we will be kicking in gear pretty soon for budget season. So if we don't get a meeting in December, it's because it's the end of the quarters in January. So we'll definitely be full gear in January.
Great. Thanks, Kim. Annika, policy.
So policy also has not met, but we do have a meeting coming up a week from today on December 12th. So
great.
More to come after that.
Yes, I know having the Thanksgiving week between our two board meetings didn't leave much time for committee meetings. Tim.
Well, I think we had a big update tonight.
Right.
We haven't met since last meeting, I don't think, but we are going to meet as a mechanical subcommittee next Wednesday. Although knowing that we have a budget that may have come through tonight with Steve, I think we might see if he gets his analysis done at that point, maybe we will put that on the agenda as well, because I'm very eager to find out what that looks like. So that's next Wednesday.
Great, thanks, Jim. And Jesse, is this the last time
The
we're
Artificial Turf Committee hasn't met, but did you think I had stopped researching?
No,
Incorrect.
no.
Incorrect. So I just wanted to throw out, so there is an option. So we're not going to have any infill, but the turf will have a little bit of ballast, which is usually just sand, just to hold the turf down. There is an option. It's $100,000 to put a oolitic compound, which is just a egg-shaped thing. It's like a calcium carbonate, like limestone, and it forms in the ocean. The calcium carbonate in the ocean just solidifies around little pieces of plankton and falls to the ocean, and they scoop it up, and there's just these little rocks, basically. But it's porous, and so it provides evaporative cooling. So if you're worried about the heat in the summer, we could spend an extra $100,000 and put this calcium carbonate mineral down, and then you could get it wet, and it would just keep the field cooler.
Again, his email is...
The manufacturer... The turf people were like, it's probably not worth it, you don't live in Texas, but if we save $100,000, we could blow it on an oolitic compound of sand upgrade. So just...
I'll let you know what the budget says.
I'll put that out there as an option we have.
Yes, and I think that is also an important point throughout the process, whether it's the turf field conversations or the school building conversations. There's all these things that we call, what are they, ad alternates?
Ad alternates.
Mm-hmm. Where there's a running list of things that
So we can put the logo on just to see what it costs, and then hand that to the fundraising committees of all the booster clubs and say, like, here's what it would cost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting that there's this,
$100,000 worth of little, basically sand,
Yeah.
upgraded sand, fancy sand.
fancy sand.
I need to work on your cell.
So you're saying we should just continue to keep this on the committee updates? Just thank you.
Always more.
Always
information.
more. Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Curriculum, Christina.
We reported on our last meeting, which was November 18. We reported on that last meeting. Our next meeting will be January 27th.
Great. Thanks, Christina. Kim, equity.
Copy and paste from finance. Basically, yeah, we have not met, and we will continue our subcommittee and then meet again in January.
Great. Thanks. And any ad hoc committees? It was really great to hear from the PTO tonight. Definitely getting a blanket.
Yeah, just another plug for the blankets.
Right. Any other updates? Okay. Moving on to communications. Just as I think I mentioned earlier, we'll work to get any of the documents that were presented tonight up on the building website, just to ensure that everyone's up to date. And I think also the point about the planning board meeting, I think is important. We were planning on doing another communication, at least to our adjacent neighbors around some of these updates on the site plan. We have an upcoming meeting with DOT and some recommendations that hopefully we'll be hearing about soon for that. But to continue to make sure both that our website is updated with the materials, especially as we voted on them from the board or they're going to other committees with the town, and that we're continuing to communicate with our neighbors. Okay.
I'm going to be going to that meeting and whenever
The planning board.
planning board meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. So of course it's
Definitely
open. I think they say it's also filmed, right? It's recorded. Was that?
I do believe the planning board is. I know the
I
ordinance.
think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. So it is. If you can't be there in person, which
I don't go to anything that's not recorded. So.
I know I am away that night, but I will follow along remotely. So that's upcoming. But yes, we'll continue to try to make sure updates are available on the website. Okay, that brings us to,
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Nailed it.
Great, thanks, Kim. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Sean. I was like, wait. All in favor? Great, thanks, everyone.